today we will be focusing on vocabulary from a book called The Egg, Nature's Perfect Package. We are going to be working with some vocabulary words in this book. Knowing these vocabulary words will help us understand the content of this book much deeper. Today we will focus on vocabulary. Tomorrow we are going to focus on the comprehension, like we do with each section of the books we read. So let's start with the first vocabulary word that we are going to see in this book. The word is called embryo. And an embryo is the early developmental stage of an animal or human while it is in the egg or within the mother's womb. So I want you girls to say the word embryo.
Embryo.
Now I'm going to count the syllables. Embryo. Let's clap it. 3. Embryo. That's right. There are 3 different chunks or syllables. This word embryo has its roots in Greek origins. That means this word goes all the way back to ancient Greek, and this is where this word started. Okay? So I would like for you to turn to page 5 and look at the word embryo. So on page 5, you see a big sidebar that says embryo. So I am going to think about what I know about this word. When I am trying to figure out what a word means, oftentimes I will ask myself some questions. These are what you call sentence stems. I can take the word embryo, and looking at it in the book, I could kind of say, well, it's kind of like
A life cycle.
a life cycle. Or maybe you're thinking microscopic animal. It looks like a tiny organism. It is when you, I don't think that applies here. It's where you go to, that doesn't make sense. It feels like, we don't know what it feels like. It smells like,
We don't know.
and you use it when you. So these sentence stems, not all of them will help you get the idea of the vocabulary word. Only use the sentence stems that will help you. I think it's kind of like, it looks like, kind of get your brain thinking about the word embryo. So what I want to introduce next is something called the Freyer model. You have one of these for each of the vocabulary words in your book. The Freyer model has a place for you to write the vocabulary word right in the middle. And I am just going to show you how to fill this out first, so you don't need to fill anything out yet, but you will, okay? I wrote the word embryo in the middle. I left a space for definition of it, examples of it, non-examples, characteristics, and you can see there's space for an illustration here, okay? So now I'm going to look at page 5 and see if they give a definition for the word embryo. So it doesn't look like it's in bolded text, so I don't think it would be in the back. But they do give a little description so we can use the context clues. Tiara?
It says over time the embryo changed from.
So we know it changes form, right? We know that an embryo will change. And it says a chick starts its life inside an egg as a tiny embryo. I see those 2 words, starts life. So and there's the picture to go with it. So I know that the embryo has something to do with starting life. right? So starting life. I am going to write that in here. Starting life.
Can you write it?
You guys are just going to watch how I fill this out for now. So in the definition, I already put the early developmental stage of an animal or human protected inside an egg or womb. If I saw that definition in the back of the book and my glossary, I could write that down. I am glad that Tiara also used the context clues to figure it out. Starting life. Emily?
How's a human protected inside an egg?
A human is protected inside its mother's womb. His or her mother's womb. So now the characteristics. Well, I'm going to look at the illustration to maybe help me draw what an embryo looks like. Characteristics, I know it's tiny. I know that it's protected. So some of the characteristics of an embryo could be that it's tiny and protected. Let me see an example of an embryo.
Can it be like a chick? Because they kind of look like an egg.
A chicken embryo, you're right. So an example of an embryo, Tiara said chick, which, as you can see, comes from chicken. So I'm going to put under my example a chicken embryo. A non-example, something that would not have anything to do with an embryo, could be, let's say, a leaf. Okay? A leaf on the ground. That is a non-example. So now, after I fill out all of my parts of the Freyer model, I really have a better understanding of what this word means. Okay? So we use the context clues to help us figure out that word embryo. We use the illustration. Okay, so we know an embryo is a human or animal in the early stages of development, starting life. Hi, Kenny.
Hola.
Have a seat. Kenny, would you mind just sitting right next to Emily? Because we're being videotaped and I want you to be able to be seen, not your back, okay? All right. Characteristic of an embryo. What does an embryo have around it, you guys? Yolk. So I'm going to put yolk in here. You put it's protected by an egg, which it can be. Not all embryos have eggs, but some can. Okay? So this is what I have. This is my model for the word embryo. Now what I am going to have us do together is look at the rest of the words. The words that we are going to be studying together, and then eventually by yourself. The next one is called albumin. Say albumin.
Albumin.
Albumin. How many parts?
Albumin.
Albumin, or albumin, has 3 parts. Here's another one. Engineer. Engineer. 3 parts. When you get to these 3 words, I want you to break them apart as well. We're going to do albumin and engineer together, and then I'm going to let you do the last 3 to yourself. So let's think of albumin. Albumin has 3 syllables, and instead of it having Greek roots, its roots derive from Latin, which is another ancient language. So albumin comes from a Latin word. Okay? Now I'm going to ask that you go ahead and write albumin in the middle. after you wrote albumin in the middle, turn to page 6 in your book. And I want you to figure out what this word might mean, either through context, like Tiara did earlier, or maybe if it's a bolded word, you may find it in the glossary. Page 6, Kenny. Tiara, what do you think?
It says,
Can you tell what albumin is by reading the context of how it's used? Okay, what does it say?
the albumin is a clear liquid that provides protein for the chick.
Yep. So we know albumin is a clear liquid that gives protein to a chick. Okay? So you know what? I see that that's part of the diagram. It's in our text. Now I'm just going to check it in the back of the book. So you may write that in your definition part of your Freyer model. Let me see, albumin. You're right, Tiara. It says a clear liquid inside an egg. So you can either say a clear liquid inside an egg, you can say a clear liquid that gives protein. Okay? And you are going to write it in the definition part of your Freyer model. Okay? Is there any other part of this Freyer model that you can fill out?
Right here.
Well, it says the characteristics. Could you go ahead and draw a picture of it? Kind of hard. It's a clear liquid, but you can do the best you can. What are some characteristics of albumin? What is it?
No. It's a clear.
It's kind of got a yellowish tint, but it's mostly clear. It's liquid. We know that's the state of matter that it's in. It's not a gas. It's a liquid form. What is its function? What does it do?
It gives protein to
It gives protein. That's a characteristic. Does it look like it may protect the chick?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So, an example of albumin may be what?
Clear liquid.
That's part of what, Tiara? Part of an...
The white part.
Yep, part of an egg.
The clear part when you like break it and it's like clear and then you see the yolk in the middle.
That's right.
Part of
The white part of what?
The
An
egg.
egg. Yes.
cooked egg.
Okay. What would be a non-example of albumin? Probably, what part of this would be a non-example?
Yolk.
Probably the yolk. That's definitely different, right? Okay.
Still the same.
I notice that many of you are drawing a illustration of the albumin. You may just want to point an arrow to the part that is the good, because I also see yolk in there, and you don't want to put the arrow on the yolk. Right there, good. Okay.
I have to get very detailed with it.
That's fine, Kenny. Get as detailed as you like. Okay. So what are some examples, Emily, of albumin? What is the example the text used?
It's a clear liquid that has protein.
That's inside the egg, yeah? Provides protein to the chick, right?
So I
Yeah.
got the eggs cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So you could say, as part of the example, is the liquid inside an egg.
Yolk.
Well, Kenny, is yolk an example of albumin?
No.
What's that?
No.
No, it's not. Hey, Kenny, yolk would be a non-example because it's clearly pointing to this part, the white part outside of the yolk. Okay? All right. Anyone like to share what they put?
Can I just read the whole thing?
Sure.
Okay. So we're going to start with the definition. I said albumin is a clear liquid that provides protein for the chick. And for classify, I just rolled an egg and just drew it lightly. And I pointed albumin, and classify is clear and it provides protein.
Good. Okay.
And an example is a liquid inside the egg, and the non-example is the yolk.
Good job. All right. I think we're ready to go on to our next example. Our next word is engineer. Okay? So turn this page, and in the middle you can write engineer. Okay? And you see that word right up here. Engineer. Engineer. Good.
There's two different types of engineers. They could be like
A worker.
yeah,
There could be a
worker and like a stove. It could be like an example of a stove. Like a stove is an engineer because it makes the eggs cook.
So inside the word engineer, you do hear the word engine, don't you? So there are many types of engineers, and I can tell you have some knowledge of what an engineer is. An engineer is somebody who designs and builds things. There are many different types of engineers. There is a structural engineer, somebody who might build a building. Mechanical engineer builds machines. Civil engineers work with soil. Okay? Let's look at what type of engineer this is. In your book, turn to page 13.
Here's another way you can find it. You can go to glossary.
If it's folded, not all words are in the glossary, Tiara, and that's why we're learning how to figure out word meanings from context clues
The
too.
yolk comes out of the arches.
So, and you're looking at the book to figure that out, good. So I want you to say the word engineer again.
Engineer.
Engineer. How many chunks?
3.
Yes. In this word, I want you to tell me what the suffix is.
ER.
Close. ER. Here it's actually E-E-R. Okay? You're right. It typically is ER. In this word, the suffix, remember a suffix is the type of affix that's attached to what part of the word?
The
The
suffix,
end
the
of
suffix
the
is at
word.
the beginning.
Yes. Well, the prefix is at the beginning. The suffix is at the end.
And the base word is in the middle.
The base word is in the middle. Good, Kenny. The base word here is engine. The suffix is ear. E-E-R, part of the suffix, means that it's somebody who does something. Okay? So somebody who does something or works on something. Okay? And it's indicated by the base word that it's describing. So ear means somebody who does something about an engine, okay, is how this Latin word was created a long, long time ago. It's got Latin origins, okay? So I want you to touch the caption on page 13. Good. Read that caption to yourself. We don't see engineer as a bolded word, so we have to rely on the context and illustrations to help us figure out the meaning. What would you say the meaning of this word engineer is?
Used to build buildings.
Okay, engineers build and design things. Buildings, what did they design in this illustration?
A bridge.
A bridge. Okay?
Arch.
An arch.
And
yeah,
a
they
railroad.
design the arches. And they also mentioned an architect in here too, but let's just focus on engineer for now. So what would
Forgot
the
about the railroad.
definition, what would you write as the definition?
That
Someone who,
Someone who
makes
builds
arches.
and makes sculptures. No, sculptures.
construction.
Like
it could, in this case, it's a bridge. Someone who designs and builds structures, you can say, okay? So a person who designs and builds structures. Just do the best you can.
Person
You did, and there is a G in there. Good, Tiara, that's correct.
wait, of someone who designs buildings.
And builds structures, or you can just say things. Or you can say buildings, but this isn't a building, this is a bridge. So if you just say structure, that kind of covers a lot, right?
Yeah, this is like engineers.
Or
I am going to let you fill out the rest of the Freyer model on your own. Your characteristic could be a bridge. Okay, your examples could be the same thing. Non-example maybe would be an egg because chickens make those, not engineers, right? So take a minute just to finish filling out your Freyer model. Many times engineers wear hard hats to protect their head when they're on
yeah,
job
that's what my dad
sites.
is, cause he goes. No, he's not an engineer, but he goes on the top of buildings.
Yeah, he's a construction worker and he wears a hard hat too.
My brother
maybe.
does. My brother does it.
Does he?
Yeah.
So Kenny, what kind of characteristics would an engineer have?
The hat looks weird.
A hat? That's okay.
I put up.
What's your
I put a snake
illustration?
for example. Snake laying eggs.
Well, that would be a non-example
Dang it.
because that's okay. That would be a non-example. What would be an example?
A bird.
Well, what would an engineer build, Kenny? What example
Howard.
does your text have?
Oh, I found one. I found an example.
What's the
A
example?
construction worker building a building.
Oh, there you go. And that could also be your illustration as well, right? Okay, so your illustration is an engineer on top of a bridge. Good. A tall building, that's something an engineer could
Oh, what
make.
about a soldier fighting for America? Would that be one?
That would not be an example of an engineer. So look at your definition for engineer, and every time you have an idea, check it by reading your definition. Somebody who designs and builds structures. And you can check it with that.
Alright, can I show?
You can share.
Okay. So my definition is the word is engineer, and the definition is someone who designs buildings and builds structures.
Okay.
And my class of
Your characteristics.
characteristics is a bridge and a person on top of the engineer on the top of the bridge and tall
Structure.
structure, and an example is a tall building, and a non-example is an egg.
A non-example is an egg. Anyone want to share their non-example? Coral, you want to share? A carrot? That is a non-example, all
Can I do
right.
another one?
Emily, what's your non-example? You can finish.
Okay, I got one. A baby.
Yep. So a non-example, people going to the store. Yeah, that's a non-example. Kenny had a really good non-example too,
A
a snake
baby.
laying an egg. A baby, yes. All right, here is your job. I am going to have you turn to The next page in your Freyer model pack, I want you to write down membranes in the middle. And then, after you're done with membranes, turn to the next page and write incubates.
Oh, I don't know.
Do you know what that is? Incubates.
I know my characteristic. I did a blueprint. You know exactly what you want to build them.
And then finally, on that last page, you can write pores. Pores. P-O-R-E-S. So the base word would be pore. With an S, with the suffix there, it is pores. So here's your job. Thank you. Penny, I saw your eyes right on me. Good job. You are going to start with membrane. I do want you to think about the parts of these words. I want you to find these words in your text, and I would like for you to ask yourself, after you've read about it, use these sentence stems to help you understand what these words mean. A membrane, it's kind of like, it looks like it is when you, remember, not all of these will work, some of them will. Do the same for incubates and pores. And we are going to meet back in several minutes to share. Okay? You will have to read your text to find these words. And you may use the glossary to help you. Not all words are in the glossary though, so you will have to rely on context and illustrations as well.
The index.
The index can help too. Good, Tiara.
16.
Construction was
Membranes.
So you are still on engineering. You can stop and go on to the next one, Kenny, just so you can keep up with us. I know you came a little bit late. Okay, so where did you get your definition for membranes? Okay, form a sac that protects the yolk. So this, I noticed, is a bolded word. What does it say right before it, Emily?
Other parts of eggs.
So it is an egg part, isn't it? So it's an egg part that does what? Keep everything
Inside the shell
so nothing leaks out, okay?
Oh, good.
And you know, I noticed that's bolded, so we could also check that in the back of the book, right?
Yes.
Kenny, you have a book, right? Yep, you do. Okay.
what am I doing?
So I noticed for membrane, there are 3 different places to find that definition.
Great.
Other parts of the egg called membranes. 3 different parts. Good. Okay. So, Tiara, I noticed that you illustrated it. Which part of your illustration is the actual membrane? Can you put a label on your illustration so we can tell?
The shell won't leak out.
Good. Okay. Just label that so I know you know which
Just
part.
over here so it won't leak out.
Okay. But label it so I know you know which part is the membrane. Good. You put a label on yours. So, Kenny, when you are illustrating membrane, just make sure you put a label on it so I know which part of your illustration is the membrane.
Would water be an example? Because like when you pour like something out.
Does it say that a membrane is liquid? Check your definition. You know what I think? It keeps everything inside the shell, so it's kind of like what? What?
A box?
Like a house?
I would say
A sheet.
almost like
A force field.
I like how you said box and house and force field, or maybe a wall. All of those remind me of something that protects. Okay? Thin sheets of tissue. Okay. A non-example, dog. A non-example of a membrane could be like anything else. The shell
Like
protects
a yolk.
it. Yeah, like the yolk. The
Or the
membranes
outside.
form a sac that protects the yolk too.
Or the egg.
Mm-hmm.
So gone.
Yeah.
And
Okay. After you're done illustrating and giving your examples and non-examples with your definition, you can go on to the next word, incubates.
The definition of the
Alright, now on the next page.
issue.
So you can read it in the context and also check it in the glossary. Coral already knew about this word. Where did you get your background knowledge on the word incubate, Coral?
In 2nd grade, we watched a video about like chickens and stuff.
Okay, so you already knew what incubates mean. Did you witness the chickens incubating their eggs? Yeah.
so do I just write like this?
How come you got it that dog?
Shit on everything?
That's basically what it is. According to this text, that word is an actual action. It's the act of sitting on, right? Mm-hmm.
So what can
You can also get some help someplace else too if you need it.
Wait, what can I do?
Well, you know it's bolded, right? So you can look elsewhere too, right?
Glossary.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so an animal sits on an egg.
Mm-hmm. Why does it do that though? What's the function of incubating?
To keep it safe.
Keep it safe, and it may say that, yep,
Oh,
warm. You can have that. Mm-hmm. Keeps eggs warm. Okay. Can you illustrate it? Illustrate that word, Penny.
Illustrate.
Illustrate. And the book can help you because the book has an
So what
example.
illustrate means?
Illustrate means to draw.
Oh.
So you can draw a picture under the characteristics of what that means. Or what it looks like,
My
right?
example was a bull keeping dog food in place.
Okay.
oh, this is like an- this is a chick, by the way.
Okay.
You can do water inside of a bowl.
Nice. I like it.
The chickens
Mhm.
one looks really That's a fucking
Yeah.
tail.
You know, I notice with some of these words, your characteristics or your illustration can be the same thing as your examples. Like your examples could be a chicken sitting on her eggs. And I notice your illustration is that too, and that's okay. Because this word really is an action word, according to how it's used in this text.
I don't understand this word.
And even if you don't get all the way to pores, we are going to, in 1 minute, stop and review what we've done so far.
A non-example is a shell.
Perfect. Yeah, because there's nothing inside of it, a flat shell anyway, that it's protecting, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Make sure I spell shell right.
So after this word, you're going to go to that one, Kenny. Okay?
Yes. Don't.
And even if you're not done, I am going to have you stop and let's share membranes. So I am going to look up membranes, and you all can follow along with me. I'm seeing lots of information on page 6 and 7 for membranes.
That's what I mean.
A part of an egg called a membrane keeps everything inside the shell so that nothing leaks out, right? And I love how you're checking at the same time. Your illustration could be this protective barrier or this protective barrier. The membranes form a sac that protect the yolk and albumin, okay? Did anyone want to share their example? Kenny, what's your example of a membrane?
A bowl keeping dog food in place.
Okay, so that like the side of the bowl, keeping dog food in place. What did you say, Tiara?
For definition.
Well, for an example.
Oh, then sheets of tissue.
Thin sheets of tissue, yeah. And that could be part of the definition too. You see it, membranes are thin sheets of tissue, almost like a plastic wrap. So if Kenny's dog bowl had plastic wrap on the side, that would be an example. What's a non-example of membrane?
A light.
A light?
A nest.
Nest? Tier?
A dog.
A dog?
A shell.
A shell. Okay. All right. Let's look at the next word, incubates, and we are going to stop right after incubates today. If we have time tomorrow, we'll share pores. Emily, do you want to give us a definition you have for incubates?
To sit on an egg to keep it warm.
To sit on an egg to keep it warm, yeah. Why would you want to sit on an egg?
To keep it warm.
To keep it warm, so why?
So
Let's check our text.
And plus, so it won't get hurt.
Because it keeps them warm while they grow.
Yes, to keep
Yeah,
them warm while they grow and so they don't get hurt, right. So what is an example of incubating? I'm on page 8.
Chicken
Chickens sitting on the eggs. What's a non-example of incubating?
Nest.
A cat.
A nest, a cat. A cat doing what though? A cat sleeping or maybe feeding its babies. Yeah. What is the illustration of incubating that you put down? Or incubates?
A dog laying on his bed.
Sitting on an egg.
Me too.
A dog
Look at
laying on
my
his bed.
chick.
Well, a dog laying on its bed may be a non-example, Kenny, because he's not sitting on anything to protect its life. Okay?
And then
All right.
last one.
You guys get
A
the
dog hiding.
idea. A dog hiding would be a non-example. An example, Kenny, would be a bird, a chicken sitting on their eggs to keep them warm so they can keep growing inside the egg. Okay? We are going to stop with the word pores today, and we are going to review that word tomorrow and work on our comprehension tomorrow. How do you feel this Freyer model helped you today, if it did? Amazing? It helped by writing it down?
It helped by making it easier.
How did it make it easier?
Like
I meant, why it helped by making it hard.
to think about the main idea. No.
To think about
Helped by like breaking it up.
breaking it up,
Different ideas.
different like examples, non-examples. Did you find that it was helpful to draw the picture?
Yes.
Yeah?
I like
Okay.
it on.
All right. You guys did great today.
Just have to read what Tiara said.
No. Tuesday.